especially because usually you can handle it with adrenaline. That's why. But even
in the fight,
even in training, when you wear the padding, it really hurts. But without the padding, it's sickening.
Why were they asking you to do this?
I don't know.
Lexus, that's like the.
Before the flop, Reilly raises it up with the a6 offsuit. He has a little bit of big stack or a bigger stack on his left in the small blind who could, you know, attack him quite a bit by 3-betting. So maybe he's raising a little bit less than half of his hands on the button here. And then Barton has a 10-7 offsuit in the big blind and obviously has to call the min raise. You know, he's going to have about 70 or even 75% of all hands that he's defending here, not really doing that much folding, getting such great pot odds.
Maybe 9th most psychotic thing I've heard Lex's friends ask him to do.
Yeah, it's just it feels, because it kind of feels like a safe environment, you know what I mean? But
no, I mean that's like giving you like a 9mm and saying shoot me in the skull. It's it feels like a nice environment, but it's still going to kill me.
I have no doubt that Lex's friends would strap on a bulletproof vest if he had a 9mm and be like, "Let's just see what happens, bro." No doubt.
One of my friends bought a tattoo machine once, and they were just drawing maps on each other.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was the number 4.
What dodos.
Yeah.
On the flop, which is queen 10-5 with 2 diamonds, Barton checks it over to Reilly, who puts in a c-bet here of around half pot. Now for this sizing, you cannot just bet your entire range, you'll be risking too much, and you know your opponent could just call and especially raise a lot against your c-bet here. But having the ace of diamonds is really nice, and it's certainly a much better c-bet than if you didn't have the diamonds where you should be doing a bunch of checking. Barton goes ahead and check calls here with the middle pair, and we head over to the turn.
Charles Alex-Barton has the best hand here. Now better than a 9-1 favorite.
The turn is the 3 of spades, which is a pretty neutral card. And Barton checks it over to Reilly, who prepares another double barrel here with the ace of diamonds, setting himself up to jam the river. And here it's really important how many 5x combinations your opponent is folding. We're about 50 off the bubble, so that might, you know, get into play a little bit here. So if your opponent's folding some 5x, the bet with the a6 gets much better. Otherwise, it shouldn't always be betting, because you could have so many better semi-bluffs here as well. You could have an open-ender, you could have a gut shot that sometimes is obviously also checking back in order not to get check jammed on. However, if your opponent's going to do mainly check calling, then those open-enders and gut shots, they're going to have a much higher EV betting here on the turn. Also, obviously, you could have a flush draw, which has a lot of equity as well going into the river. Whereas a6 really needs to bluff a ton of rivers in order to, you know, make a lot of chips. Because here on the turn, if your opponent has a queen or a 10, he should be just doing, you know, purely calling or sometimes raising, of course, with a queen. So, you know, having just ace high here, you know, you have to basically pull the trigger on the river or hope that your opponent is actually doing a lot of folding with 3rd pair here on the turn.
Looks like it's firing. Excellent read by him. He's putting Alex in a very tough situation here. One of the biggest problems here is that, you know, if your opponent is bluffing, a lot of the times it's going to be a hand like Jack-9 of diamonds or King-9 of diamonds or Ace-Jack. All those hands do pretty well against you still. So you could be doubting yourself on the turn, but even against hands that you still beat, you could be in a very tough situation on the river. But he makes an excellent call here. Really excellent call.
Yeah, I just don't know how you do that with that few chips behind too.
Yeah. This is
not a great river.
Yeah, Reilly was really, I think, banking here on obviously an ace, a king or a jack. But if he triple barrels this, I'm gonna be impressed.
Trying real hard to get a read right now. Looks like he's gonna do it.
Damn, I mean straight and flush draws miss. Oh wait, flush draw hits and he has the ace of diamonds. I'm sorry, I thought it was the 3 hearts. Oh, that's actually, that's super interesting. Damn. Go on, son.
The river is the 3 of diamonds. Barton checks and now really has the ace of diamonds as a, you know, quite great bluff card here to shove, and he does. Now here it really matters how many ace deuce, ace 3, ace 4, ace 5 of diamonds Barton still has in his range. You know, having that ace of diamonds obviously removes the possibility of Barton having those hands, but also Barton could have check raised those nut flush draws on the flop. So there it is really important in a poker tournament and in poker in general to observe what your opponent's tendencies are. Is the ace of diamonds really relevant here? Is your opponent's having those hands in his check call range, or did he raise them on the flop before that? That is really what you have to ask yourself if you pull the trigger here on the river, because you want to have a bluff that makes sense. And if your opponent is going to check call, you know, all those hands, then all of a sudden, you know, having the ace of diamonds removes so many of the snap calls of your opponent's range on the river that the bluff becomes so much better. However, if your opponent, for instance, is really, really tight on the turn and, you know, folds a lot of 5x combinations, folds a lot of even 10x combinations, and ends up having with a lot of top pairs, you know, some reasonable bluff catchers on the river, then, you know, jamming here with just the ace of diamonds doesn't accomplish nearly as much. So it really depends on your opponent and how he's playing. In an equilibrium, if you end up here on the river and your opponent's playing, you know, or trying to play like a solver, shout outs to the solvers, then you would be, you know, good off jamming on this river. Your best bluff here would be king jack. Why? Because if you have a king and a jack, it blocks the queen jack and the king queen here of your opponent, which would be automatic calls here if, you know, Barton has them here after Reilly jams, because those hands, they block a lot of the value jams here. The threshold for going all in is actually not flushes. A lot of people might check big here with a lot of top pairs or even over pairs without a diamond, and then just jam like flushes and like kings and a diamond, and that is certainly too tight. In this instance, you want to be going all in with a bit more, unless you're really closing in on the bubble and think that, you know, checking and not, you know, making your tournament life a thing here on the river is going to be, you know, hurting your equity. So, you know, ICM can certainly, you know, change things up quite a bit here, you know, that you would jam a little bit less thinly for value. People would also call down with less hands, you know, approaching the bubble and trying to cash here, especially in a $25,000 tournament. So these are a lot of thoughts that go into the river, but let's see what Barton ends up doing against the jam.
Wow, yes. Shoves on Charles Alex-Barton.
That's a great move.
And he cannot find the call.
Wow, what a great move. Big bluff. 6 of clubs, that's when you show it.
Whew. Nasty. Tim.
Barton ends up making the quick fold here on the river with his 10-7, which is basically saying that he gives his opponent credit for, you know, value jamming thinly or having not enough bluffs here to be making an exploitative hero call here. I think that he could have certainly taken his time if he gave his opponents more credit to be bluffing here, which, you know, his opponent certainly did. And also, you know, if his opponents had ace-6 offsuit with ace of diamonds, well, what about all the other ace of diamonds X hands? You know, there's a ton of those hands in his range. So let's say he really jammed here with all of his ace X of diamonds that didn't make a pair on the river, including ace king with the ace of diamonds and ace jack with the ace of diamonds. Those are an extreme amount of combinations that he would be bluff jamming with, right? So if that's the case, then you certainly should think about calling some of your 10x combinations here on the river, especially if his opponent doesn't balance his bluffs with enough value hands, namely those top pairs, some of these over pairs, obviously trip threes on the river that he could have made with his ace 3 offsuit here or ace 3 suited. So that's it's really what could be going through your head here in Barton's shoes, and you're also 50 off the bubble, so there's a lot of ISM in play, and you should probably doing a little bit more folding, and then really should be doing a little bit more bluff shoving, maybe, you know, exploiting some of these tighter folds or this expanded folding range here. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of this hand. I for sure enjoyed watching this hand, and I thought it was one of the most interesting hands, you know, going into the close to bubble phase here on day number 2. Also, I think, you know, from the chip counts, we got Mustafa Kanit here with a big stack. I'm going to also link the chip counts again in the description below. We got also Griffin, check your privilege banger with the biggest or third biggest stack here in the tournament, you know, going to almost 900,000 chips at, I think, blinds 4K, 8K. Certainly, yeah, looking forward to seeing what's going on day number 3 later today. Here I'm sitting in Europe. Let me know in the comment section also how you liked this video, if you liked the analysis, what you would have you know, liked differently. But obviously I'm going to make an analysis that's very solver based, even though a lot of people out there in the industry are going to hate on solvers, but that's obviously how I view the game and how I try to improve. And I certainly am not claiming that, you know, I would know the plays in game, but you can always, you know, look at the spot and see what a, you know, computer would do, and then try to peon better and try to also work out a strategy, factor in what your opponents are doing, and which I try to do in this analysis as well. So hope you guys are looking forward to the next video. See you guys over there.